Hi everyone, this is our first sit down video. This is going to be baby James's 4 months update. I've decided I'm going to do these every month and also try and throw some other sit down videos in when I get the chance of like our empties and things we're buying for him and all that kind of stuff. But I tried filming this the other day and I looked at the footage and it was just all over the place. So I've made notes. I have my iPad here with my notes app open and things to kind of cover while I talk about this. So I'm going to give a very brief summary of his first 3 months and then talking about the differences of the last month. Please comment if you would like a birth story on baby James. I think I mentioned it in week 1's vlog, but if you would like a more in-depth detailed version of that, please let me know. So a summary of 0 to 3 months was James was due on May 17th. He was born in April. He was born 4.5 weeks early via an emergency C-section because of my blood pressure and his heart rate. That is a very quick summary of all of that. I was in hospital for the first few days, and obviously because of the current situation with COVID, I was by myself. Paul was not allowed into the hospital at all. He had a little bit of issue breathing. Not a major issue, but the NICU wanted to just double check his breathing because he was breathing too fast. So he went into NICU, Paul went with him, and then he was brought up to me. So he was born at 6:20 and then he was brought up to me by about 1 a.m. But Paul had only been away for a couple hours at that point because I was in recovery because of the C-section where you're numb from here down. Not the experience at all that I really wanted, but I was really scared about labour. So in a way, I'm sort of glad in a way that it happened that way. But anyway, the outcome for us was healthy mum, healthy baby, which is what we got. So when he was born, he was £6.5, which is big for a baby that's 4.5 weeks early. He would have been probably about £9 at birth because he was in the 90th percentile for height and weight the entire time. Sorry, I'm still learning to look over here at the camera and not over like straight this way. So he was £6.5. He was in tiny baby clothes, which we didn't have any of. So his clothes at the beginning were huge on him. And then he dropped to £5.14 and came home at £5.14. So he was born on the Thursday and he came home on the Tuesday. It was the Monday or the Tuesday. Thankfully, we have some friends who had babies and they passed us over a lot of tiny baby clothes and that kept him going for the first few weeks. First, I breastfed James, but after a really short amount of time, only a couple of weeks, we realised that he was too hungry for that. So, and then also because of what happened in the hospital and how I was by myself and I was so tired, we were topping it up with bottles sort of from the beginning anyway, so that Paul could help feed him and Paul could help. Because by the time I got home from the hospital, I hadn't slept in about 3 days. I'd barely slept for like an hour or two because I had this little tiny new baby who didn't really want to sleep and who didn't really feel obviously as safe and warm in the hospital and only kind of wanted to be held by me and all that. So it was a long kind of process, and then he was bottle fed a little bit. He really took to the bottle feed better than breastfeeding. So he was bottle fed from a couple of weeks old topping up and then exclusively bottle fed after I think 3 weeks. Yeah, about 3 weeks because my mum came up and I had stopped breastfeeding at that point. I tried to pump and stuff as well and I just didn't have enough. And it was a lot of energy and he was sort of using me as a comfort, which is fine. He was a little baby, but it was very tiring. It was a whole lot. It was a lot at night. Paul had kind of taken over some of the feeding at night to try and help me. And we even tried, the midwife who comes and visits like after you've had a baby in Scotland said to try and do the kind of 12 to kind of 3 a.m. feeds because that's when Mother Nature tells your body to switch back on and make more milk. And I tried that and there was a time where I fed him for an hour and a half and then he still took a full bottle, so he wasn't getting enough for me. So I don't mind about that. Like, I've always thought fed is best. I wanted to try breastfeeding, but I wanted my baby to be happy and fed and not hungry, and that's the case, so he's fine now. We use SMA formula just because I think Paul's mum used it and it's really good. We've had no issues with it from the beginning at all. Really, after only a few weeks, we realised that James had colic. We sort of thought that that could be a possibility because Paul had really bad colic for a few months. He tended to scream for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, sometimes only an hour, at about 7 or 8 o'clock at night every night. So We quickly started using Infocol, which is a little, I don't even really know what it's made of, but it's a little medicine that he gets right before his bottles, and it helps him to get rid of that wind, because that's what colic is like trapped wind. So we used that for a while. It was working, but his colic still was really bad. And we asked about, there's another thing called Colic, but it wasn't appropriate for us because even though a lot of people say it works, it has to be in the bottle for 45 minutes or something before James gets it. And he is not a baby that shows his hunger. He goes from 0 to 100 with everything. So he went from I'm totally happy to I'm starving this second very, very quickly, and it just proved to be too much for us, so we couldn't do that. So before we had used Tommy Tippy bottles. We bought the anti-colic bottles for that reason. We used them for a while, and then I'm part of a little mums group, and I asked them what they thought, and a lot of them said the Dr. Brown's bottles. So we started using them, and he's preferred them, and they really helped. So the Dr. Brown's bottles, they have a little kind of green filter in them, and they stop the kind of air as much getting into the bottle. He now doesn't have the little green filter in the bottle, and he just has a regular bottle, but he's really happy with it. At the beginning, he was eating every 3 hours like clockwork. So throughout the day, at first he went from 4 hours, but that was, I think, because he was early and like catching up on sleep and growing. And then he went to every 3 hours, and he was like that up until about 3 months, to be honest, where he slept kind of 3 hours, woke up 3 hours. But as a parent and as a mum whose husband does night shift sometimes, and I mean, even for Paul, it was really tiring because 3 hours isn't 3 hours, it's 12 and then 3. So when you feed him at 12, it was then feeding him. It was about half an hour to feed him and get him ready and put him back into bed at least. So that was kind of like half an hour, 45 minutes. So that's 1:45. You're finally going to sleep yourself by about 1, and you're getting maybe 2 hours of sleep before he's waking you back up again. So we were so tired, but we were helping each other. We were taking turns, and it was working really well. The good thing was he was settling himself when he was doing that. Sorry, I keep looking down because I'm looking at the iPad for the notes. He settled himself when he was doing that, so that was good. And I was shattered, I was dropping off my feet, but so was Paul, and we were getting through it, and we were fine. He didn't really like sitting up at all up until he was about 3 months old. He sort of, if you put him in any sort of seating position, he wasn't really happy. He was like crying, upset, didn't want to do that. And when he had daytime naps, they were in the baby box. So that was his sort of birth to 3 months update. And what I'm going to tell you now is what has been happening since 3 months. So between 3 and 4 months now. And he's now about 4.5, but so we'll have another one soon. But he's sleeping more at night now, but less during the day. So he'll maybe have naps during the day, but for a nap during the day for James, he sort of has to be lying on a person. So he wants to be lying on me or lying on Paul. If you put him down, he will sleep, but not for as long. So if you want him to have a decent nap throughout the day, it's almost like, okay, get him to sleep, hold him on you. So that's fine. He is eating 7 ounces about every 3 hours during the day, but then at night he is waking up about once or twice maximum, if what you call at night. So basically, like last night, he slept from 8 till 3, had a bottle at 8, and then slept from about 8:15, 8:30 until 3. And then at 3 had a bottle, and then had a bottle again at 6:30, and then kind of went down until 8 o'clock, 8:30 again. So he is up kind of once in the night, and then once in the morning he will go back down, which is good for us because we're getting some sleep and feeling a bit better. He is almost out of size 3 nappies. He is now about 18 pounds, so he's a big boy. He is probably the size now that we expected him to be when he was born, or like would have been anyway, but it took him a while to get to that. With the colic, when it started to get worse and not better, so the colic was sort of easing, and then all of a sudden James got really worse again and was kind of crying and doing screaming fits. And it just so happened that it was a week when Paul was night shift. Now I've mentioned this in one of the vlogs, and thank you so much for the lovely comments that I got from a lot of people about that. I got a lot of messages, I got a lot of comments asking how we were and with different things to try. But James was having some screaming fits where he would kind of like scream for an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, and his face would kind of go purple because he was screaming so much, and you'd almost have to blow in his face to remind him to breathe. And that got really distressing, and it just so happened that Paul was night shift when a lot of this was happening as well. So that week was compounded by Paul being night shift, and then my mum came up most nights, but then sort of said, you need to speak to the midwives. So in Scotland, we have a fantastic aftercare system where midwives come out until, like, every couple of days until your baby's back to their birth weight. And then they come out at certain points. So James had several visits. He now isn't seen until he's 8 months. So they kind of see him at 4 months and then not again until about 8 months. So that's nice that we're getting that break, but they're always there if you need them. I have my health visitor's number. They are very regular in the aftercare and we're really lucky with that. But one of the visits that the health visitor made, we decided to try baby Gaviscon with James because we thought that he had silent reflux. It didn't really work. It felt like it worked for a day or two, and then he screamed, and then it was worse. And so we decided, after one day when Paul's mum was coming to take James on a Saturday, yet again mentioned in the vlog, he screamed for about 2 hours, and Paul's mum said to phone NHS 24, which is an out-of-hours service run by the hospitals in Scotland, so the National Health Service. So I called, they gave me an appointment at the Royal Alexandria Hospital. We went up there. They sort of said, oh, they thought it was really bad colic, but I didn't really think it was that. And then we could stay there, we could go home, or we could go to see a doctor at the Royal Hospital for Children, which would be an actual paediatrician. We opted to do that. Now, because of COVID, Paul wasn't allowed in. It was just one parent. We thought he was maybe going to have to stay overnight and we would switch over, but it ended up that he didn't, thankfully, so I was just with him the entire time. But he was doing that screaming regularly in the hospital, which I was sort of glad about, because what you don't want is for them to do that on the phone and then get to the hospital and not be as upset. But no, he was very, very upset. So we took him to the hospital and they have given him some medicine. It's called omeprazole, I'm sure is what it's actually called. And he now gets 2.5 mils of that every day on an empty stomach. So normally around about that 3 a.m. feed, he gets his 2.5 mils of that because that's when he's been asleep the longest. Basically what that does is neutralise the acid. So basically James is getting heartburn. But the Gaviscon in for babies is just to thicken the milk. It doesn't actually improve the acid. So this is improving the acid. So he's on that for just now. He is much, much happier now that he is on that. He is starting to teethe, which is difficult. So he's getting some Calpol at night to try and kind of like help him settle a bit more, because you can see his bottom kind of like tooth, like that on there, is starting to come in. It's been starting to come in for a while, but it's really starting to come in. He is starting to grab things. He still is very much 0 to 100 when it comes to how he feels. So when we're doing tummy time, or when he's playing in something, or when he's hungry still, he will go from I am totally fine to oh my goodness, get me out of here, or give me something else, very, very quickly. His hair is getting so much darker and his eyes are changing colour. He's really starting to look like Paul. He looked like me a lot at the very beginning, and he very much looked like his mama, but he is very much now Paul. He looks like Paul's baby pictures. I think he has my mouth, but everything else, he's Paul. Me and Paul were both big babies, so he was going to probably look both of us, but he's very much looking like his dad now, which Paul is very, very happy about, because for a while it was all the messages of, oh, he looks so much like Samantha. Well, Paul's much happier that he looks like him. He's starting to show that he knows it's mum or dad. So a really good example of this was my mum came over and he's been around her a lot, and whatever happened, I was leaving the room, she was holding him, I was going to do something, and he cried when I left the room and he got all upset, and he was fine after a minute. He was totally fine, but he definitely knows when he's with his mum and when he's with his dad and when he's with other people. He's fine with other people, but he knows when it's mum or dada. He is smiling so much, especially when I speak Spanish to him. So I speak Spanish, French and English. I'm a teacher, I teach languages, and I want James to speak Spanish, so we've started that. The very first time I did it with him properly was a couple of days ago, and I've kind of decided I really want to kind of speak to him mostly in Spanish to try and see how much he will pick up. But when I speak Spanish to him, he definitely smiles and giggles. But I guess when I was pregnant with him, I was working, so I was speaking Spanish a lot when I was pregnant with him. In my department, we speak Spanish to each other regularly, because the girls that I work with, a couple of them are native Spanish speakers, so they're from Spain, and in order for me to keep my Spanish really good as it can be, I speak Spanish all the time at work, so he very much picked up the Spanish, and he giggles when I speak Spanish. He is starting to like sitting in his, like sitting up, sitting against pillows, and he is also starting to go into 6 to 9 month clothes. So what I have noticed, my sister lives in America, my dad lives in America, so I have been given gifts for James and things sent for him, and American sizes are sort of in between UK sizes. So American sizes are, so if I'm 0 to 3 months in the UK, I would then go into 6 to 9 American before 6 to 9 UK, because they're sort of an in-between. So his 6 to 9 month American clothes fit him really quite well, and he will very soon be into his 6 to 9 month clothes, his UK size, which is crazy because he's just getting so big. We're very, very lucky. We just are very, very lucky in general. He is fantastic. It's so challenging. It is so difficult. It is so much more difficult because of what is going on right now. But we're very, very lucky. We have a very healthy baby, a very happy baby. And hopefully, now that he's got his medicine and all that, he is going to start just being good. I think James will really take a turn when he starts to eat food. I think he's possibly getting a bit hungry for bottles, and I think once he starts to get real food, he will be a more settled baby. He's still settled, but obviously he's going through some changes right now, but every stage is difficult. The beginning stage was so difficult because it was the lack of sleep. You could get a lot done because the baby slept so much. Now I'm getting more sleep, but can't get anything done because when Paul's at work, James wants to be held all day and have attention all day and all that, which is great, but we're getting there. So today is Wednesday the 26th of August, and I've just filmed this, and I'm actually going to try and edit it and maybe put it up tonight. If I can edit it in the next hour, it might be up at like 6 o'clock. So that's the plan. James is downstairs sleeping, or else he'd had a little cameo. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you comment on our videos. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Please go to our Instagrams. They'll be right here. They always are kind of right here. Maybe this side. I'm not really sure yet what I'm doing here. But my Instagram, Paul's Instagram, and our joint Instagram account about James and our family is up on the screen right now for you to be able to go and follow us. Please make sure you tune into our vlogs. They go live on Sundays. They go live at 12 GMT. So please go and watch those and stay tuned. Any videos you want, please comment and let us know. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for taking the time to care about our little family. And we'll see you soon. Bye.